Okay, welcome everybody. We are very excited today. We have a special guest with us, Nemo Dighe from Group 1001. I had the pleasure of meeting Nemo last year at the AI4 conference at a dinner sponsored by Data Science Salon, now AI Loves Data, by our wonderful friend Anna Annison, who brought us all together. And then recently, Sandy got to meet Nemo as well.
Yep.
I've been looking forward to this conversation since I attended the Data Science Salon event in December because it had so many great use cases and applications in the insurance space. And Nemo and I have had conversations on and off about how to get the business to bring those use cases to the technology side, bridge those gaps, how to get AI adoption. And she has so much good thought and foresight in that. And I think it's going to be a great conversation today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We will take questions as we go through the show. So do feel free. We don't have to hold those till the end. And Sandy, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Awesome. So Nemo, I saw you speak at AI Loves Data, so we'll give Anna another shout out. I wanted to give you a chance to give us a little bit about your background, give us a quick 2-minute rundown, who you are, how you got here, how you started working with data, AI, and specifically the insurance industry.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marybeth and Sandy, having me here. I was really looking forward to this one because, like, going back, I met Marybeth and we were talking about data and AI, and we ended up talking about AI adoption. And that is exactly my field. So I'm a data and AI strategist, and I'm currently Associate Director of Business Intelligence at my company. And my work sits at the intersection of business, technology, data, and AI. And it spans a lot of analytics, AI strategy, data governance, digital transformation, and most importantly, stakeholder enablement. I partner with business leaders, product teams, engineering teams, and any other operational teams to help them move from problems to practical solutions. And honestly, like, this intersection was not planned. This kind of happened by accident. I started in the data space, and from what I thought, it was all going to be about building models, building metrics, insights, dashboard. But very quickly, I learned that every business unit, every technical team have their own language. And that's how I started in this role. And I've been loving this so far, to get to be that interpreter for different teams. That's the best thing that has happened to me.
Amazing. At AI Loves Data, you were talking about your 5-step framework. Did you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that AI should be the outcome. A lot of times, like, we are in the phase called as AI rush, right? Because AI has to be used, and if you don't use it, you're going to get left behind. So everyone wants to get on the AI wagon, which totally makes sense. But in order to use AI, you need certain fundamentals. You need that foundation. A great analogy that I can think of is, you want to ride a car, you're going to drive a car, that's great, but you need to build roads. You need to make sure that you are all safe in your car, right? So there's a lot of foundationals, fundamentals associated with it. And that's how I start breaking into, how do you reach AI maturity, or how does AI become the mature outcome? So you start with, number one would be classifying the problems and outcome, right? Like, where do you really need AI? The question should not start with, can I use AI here? But it's like, what are the problems the stakeholder is facing? What are the problems the business teams are facing? Because that's where your real opportunities lie. Once you have those, the second one would be building foundation. Do you have the data and everything that you need, or is that data siloed in like 14 different places? And is that the data that the business wants you to use? Because remember when I was talking about different languages or different lingos, different business units use.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, when a claims team is talking about, hey, there's some activity, Maybe they're talking or referring to claims, maybe getting processed, receiving claims, but a sales team might refer to activities as a customer interaction. So a
Mhm.
technical team person would come in and say, so what exactly is activity? Where does that come from? So step two would be the foundation, understanding the basic, understanding that business language, sort of having the business language taxonomy, if you call it.
Right. Okay.
Third would be classifying the problem and owning that translation layer. So you need someone in between all of these teams who can translate and interpret what's going on. Assign a translator owner who keeps the solution anchored to the true outcomes.
Mhm.
Why do we need this? What process is taking long? What are the fundamentals that we need? Do we have the data that we need? And this translation or the interpreter owner will take it and will connect with the technical teams to build that project. And that's with the step four. This is where the actual building happens with the technical teams, where with that translator, that owner, you build a solution with your stakeholder, not for your stakeholder. Because that's where step five comes in. If you build it with them, that builds trust and that builds trust based adoption.
Nice. I think one of the things that stuck out with me, you were talking about pain point literacy, and I think Mary Beth and I have been finding this all along. If we keep finding people don't really know how their own company works, right? So how, if that's your starting point, what does that really mean in practice? Like, why are so many organizations like unaware of and go straight to the technology?
Uh, so when I talk about pain point risk literacy, I'm talking about the ability to diagnose the problem before choosing the solution. And we are in the time of AI rush, right? Everyone is investing in AI, everyone has been using AI. So you need to get on board with that, right? There's a sort of rush. People are driving it. If not, you're going to get left behind, and that might mean the worst, right? Like we saw what happened with Chegg, we saw what happens when people don't really adopt AI super fast. But what happens in that rush is a lot of things get missed because now organizations start asking the question, hey, where can we use AI?
Mhm.
And that's where most AI initiatives go wrong because it becomes the starting point and not the end point to a problem, right? Like we're almost fitting problems to AI, not AI to the problem.
We always are
So
going back to the basics. Start with the problem, not with the solution. And so many people are starting with AI as the magic bullet for everything. And you had also mentioned, I think, that Goldman Sachs achieved like a 90% accuracy and high adoption using this approach. Why do you think that they got it right and others miss?
yeah, so that was an interesting study. When Goldman Sachs built their platform called as Legend, they actually met with all the business unit and they had them prepare a business taxonomy. Hey, what do you mean when you use this particular term? And that's exactly what AI wants, right? Because that becomes
Nice.
the data point. The more information you feed, the more accurate AI will give you the
Mhm.
answers. It won't hallucinate, it won't make things up because now it has certain guardrails. Plus, it's a good effort, right? So now different business units know what they are talking about when
Mhm.
they say, for example, activity.
Right.
I
Nice.
love that so much. Like having been a data person and like your data catalog and you get the definitions, like someone, finance could be talking about revenues and sales could be talking about revenues, but they might have a different way that they're looking at it. Is it the revenues that are recognized yet? Revenues not paid yet? I mean, it you might think sometimes like in a business meeting in the same company you think you're talking about the same thing but you're not, and
Yep.
how is the machine going to know that?
And we saw this a million times at
Exactly.
Moody's, right? Where you would have the same data set called the different thing on the website, and thank you, Louise, cleaned that up at some
Yeah,
point. So yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, and I like it that you're calling this a taxonomy because you're giving it context and you're giving it structure for to do so.
yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. So that is I love that point. I mean, and I think this sort of gets into, and I'm going to try to segue it because I know your other stuff is about like interpretation between the business and technology. But you probably can't carry that out very well unless you have this taxonomy and definitions and you're talking the same language. So I'd imagine that helps facilitate that. And
Yep.
you can, and you can tell me, how, your role and how you saw that coming together and to figure this out for an organization to bring this in, especially in a legacy regulated environment like insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, like I said, this kind of happened by accident, right? Because when I entered this domain, I was fully data. I did not even know this realm of possibilities. So I got in, and the one thing that I figured out was the data is here. All the information, everything that I need, the tools, everything is here. But the real challenge is talking to both teams, business and technical teams, because even though they were speaking the same things, they meant things completely different. And
Hmm.
that happened with me because the first time I remember I was working on a project and it was something to do with the sales. And every business unit has a different definition. So I created something and I remember I had a meeting with my CEO at that time. And he was like, okay, great. And then we had this whole story of why this is happening and everything. And then I come back and then I learned that my definition was of sales was totally wrong than what the business would. Right.
Interesting.
And like I name it as the time that my dashboard lied to the CEO. But,
Hmm.
and that's what got me more curious about, hey, what are these definitions? What am I not seeing? What is it that you mean when you use a particular term? And is this common? And that's when I discovered that it is common apparently in pretty much
Hmm.
every industry. So that's when I started putting sort of, guardrails around building a taxonomy. Hey, what does this person mean? I started to kind of hone my skills to be bilingual. And
Hmm.
that's what helped me. And I just ended up being in this position from there.
And then also with like making the definition and when you get the definition, I guess I don't know. Do you end up with different definitions or do you end up with a single definition? And like, is there an owner of the definition?
There's a bit of both, to be honest,
Yeah.
right? Like, yes, for some things, there has to be one standardized definition. Let's say if I have something with the senior leadership and I'm giving them some exposure, that's when I like to sort of, go with a fixed definition.
Hmm.
But if, let's say, I'm doing something with the operations team or someone is doing something with the claims team, now they will definitely have a different definition. You can't have their definitions as same as the finance.
Hmm.
So per business unit, per different definitions, and every business unit should be the owner of the business definitions.
Yeah, I like that. So then you're working with the business unit to make all that happen, and you're sitting in the middle, and then you have the technology and you're interpreting this. What is that like? And like, what kind of like, what type of person does it take to navigate that and bring that all together?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I see this role as something of a data product owner or a data business user, someone who can understand and speak both languages, business and technicals, but they own the bridge between those two teams, right? They understand the workflow well enough. They understand where the pain points sit, where and which technology can help that particular pain point. They are the translators, but they also understand the technical world. While they're not purely technical, they can sit with claims, operations, underwriting, risk, or anything, understand the business context, but also sit with the technical teams and design and architect that solution, and then also help the business unit adopt that solution.
No, I love it. I love it. So once that gets into place, and then the last part really is, getting like the adoption of AI, which I think I'm just going to steal a line from our CTO. He always says the technology is the easy part, the people issues are the hardest part. And you have a concept which I relate to as being, product person and agile and whatnot is bringing the stakeholders in to build it and bringing everyone together and maybe just have, share your view there and your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I think You have a successful adoption if the end user, the stakeholder, was looped in from the start. When you're building a solution with your stakeholder and not for your stakeholder, adoption naturally happens when it's with, right? And I would say just democratize information, democratize data. Even if, like, let's say you're building a chatbot for your end client, the first thing you can give them is just a UI to play with. Maybe second thing you can give them is just an Excel file and say, hey, these are the only questions that you could potentially ask your chatbot, and these are the answers that you'd get. Is that right? And that's where the actual business context get passed along. And that's exactly what Goldman Sachs did with the Legend platform, right? Because now the business user will go in and will actually give it the context. Hey, this is the right one. This is what the chatbot should do, and this is not what it should do. So the adoption happens naturally. It's almost organical. So you don't have to plan adoption phase, but when you launch it, the stakeholder already knows that it's for them, it's with them, and
And
they've been it from
what
start.
I like about that too, it just reminds me too of like when we've Sandy and I we've done them is like you build design strengths and
Prototypes.
design prototypes and all that, and you bring not just the person who's sponsoring but their team or the different people who are going to use it and those different viewpoints, so you get all that together, but you end up getting all the requirements, you get everything flushed out, and you get a alignment and you de-risk everything. But what I love is that if you help them to be part of building that solution, the adoption becomes easier. And I really,
Yeah.
again, it goes back to basics of how we've done these things. It's not new, but it's these methods, they still work, and they're
Yeah.
they're imperative in all this. So,
Nemo, I'm kind of curious, what does a prototype or early MVP look like in this kind of regulated space and insurance for you? Like, what would you be sharing with the stakeholders?
It depends on the project use case. Let's make up a project use case. Let's say we have uh, a chatbot for folks, right? For maybe customer service or something about that. The first thing that you need to do is number one, let folks know that the MVP gives accurate information.
Hmm.
Because if the MVP gives something wrong, people are going to lose trust real fast. They're
Right.
going to go like, hey, I couldn't trust the MVP. Why should I trust the end product? Right? So
Hmm.
the MVP could be something very basic. It could be a UI. It could be just a list of, hey, these are the questions, these are the answers. What do you feel about that? Can I put that in UI? You give me a list of questions and answer, and we'll see how the LLM learns it. It can be as simple and as basic as that.
Hmm.
Something that I called it is an MMMVP in legacy
Okay.
industry because there's so many terms and terminology and data is siloed in so many places,
Hmm.
and not every time there has been a migration, so there's a high chance that in legacy industries you might not find all the data that you need. Maybe there's a third party data, and that's why I go to an MMMVP where you have one question, one answer, and that is correct.
Okay. Um, so I'll skip over to your final step, which is trust-based adoption, and that's where adoption happens through participation and transparency. We touched on this a little bit, but what does ownership at launch look like for you? So you're handing it over to stakeholders and teams. What are you seeing that actually looks like?
That's an interesting question. I'd say ownership at launch means business users don't feel like something is being handed to them at the end. They feel like we built this in partnership, right? The language that they use is reflected in the tool. Their
Mhm.
workflow was considered, their feedback changed the design. They help shape this tool. They understand what this AI tool can do versus what it cannot do, and where them they themselves have to step in that human in loop, so they're very clear of these three distinct things.
Right.
I love
Cool.
that. I love it.
And when you've seen this go right, what was the turning point where like the skeptics, the AI haters were brought into it?
I think AI skepticism is natural, and I understand where it comes from. Uh, like, for example, it kind of happened to me because I was a data person. I still am. And overnight, I remember I was in college and I was like, wait, I don't have to code anymore. But like I spent my entire life learning this. Like, well, what does this mean for my career? So I get where the skepticism is coming from, but at the same time, what really helped me was knowing what AI can versus cannot do. It cannot
Yeah.
be that translator, it cannot be that data product owner, right? And that's what we need to propagate forward for
Hmm.
folks in legacy industry or for any industry in that matter, for marketing, for operations. Hey, this is where, yes, AI will automate some of your process, and this is where it will not. So this is where you get to intervene and you get to be the human in loop. I think literacy and awareness is a big component of it,
Hmm.
where in companies right now AI is being all top down, where leaders are giving initiatives, but AI should also be bottom up.
Correct.
What is
Yes.
AI, right? You would be able to speak more freely about the concerns, about the skepticism with your colleagues than reaching out directly to leaders.
Right. And it shouldn't be replacing you, taking away your development job. It should be 10xing it, right? Like you still
Exactly.
vibe coding is still coding. You still need to know how to troubleshoot and get out of, when
Well,
you hit a
isn't
dead end.
there's something like the number of software engineer like postings has increased, and I forgot what the latest figure. There was something that just came out recently. So when you think about it, your people are there's the efficiency. This is just my thought, but now people can build more, right? So you can build more of the things you couldn't do, or you could do things that you can leave those manual things alone, but you're still going to need engineers to monitor this stuff. You're still going to need them to figure out the hard architecture issues. And like Nemo, you're talking about, it comes down to your experience, your taste, and your judgment. And you still need that human centric approach.
Right. And the guardrails. I think there have been some notable accidents that, where code bases have been released by accident, that type of thing. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. And governance is another topic I think that keeps coming out
Mhm.
in the AI conversation. In a regulated industry like insurance, how do you balance the need for guardrails with the need for speed, I guess?
That's a good one because I think AI just happened to drop out of nowhere. No one was expecting the pace at which it caught up. So governance was kind of left behind, right? And every industry noticed that hey, we need to set up guardrails because the technology is flowing in real fast, real soon. I think for a regulated industry, more or less like insurance or insurance tech, I would go with a lightweight model that works well with a tiered governance model. And so what I want to call is a governed autonomy. Enough guardrails to protect the business, but
Mhm.
enough access for teams to learn, test, and iterate. Because a lot of time what happens is the guardrails are so strong that the
Mhm.
teams don't get the flexibility or freedom to try out different things. And
Yeah.
if they don't try out different things, they'll never really learn and understand what AI is.
Hmm.
So that's what I refer to as a lightweight model.
I like that. I like that because you have the model, you have that framework, and then you can tweak it, and but then people can still I don't want to say play around, but they can still experiment and learn, which
Experiment.
is
Yeah.
the way you learn with any of these technologies. Um, no,
Absolutely. Something like low risk use cases, right? Maybe like migration or moving from sandbox to MVP. Those could be like the first things that people try on, and then maybe move on to a medium risk use cases like
hmm
Hmm.
claims or underwriting support that
yeah,
need a stronger review.
that's interesting. You mentioned that. I was wondering, like in insurance, right now being regulated, same like financial services, where do you see? I'm sure there's like the low hanging fruit, and then there's the higher risk. Where is like most of the progress happening, in insurance, and what is being done with AI and AI transformation?
A couple things actually. A lot of insurances, or that's not just insurance, insurtech and fintech have been actively using AI for more of their customer supports. Because a
Hmm.
lot of time customer calls in and they go like, "Hey, I'm so and so, and this is what I need." Now, for you to understand who that particular person is on the end call, you have to go through the database and search for, their entire history. Especially if they're calling with a complaint, you want to know what the complaint is about so that you retain your customer. And I see a lot of folks having a chatbot for that. If a person is calling, "Hey, who is this? What happened with them? Did they have a complaint? And how can I make it right for them?"
No, and then with there's that's like the front facing, and then there's like the back office. So is there, besides the client facing, and the back office will help the user experience, like like what areas is tending to be worked on in that area?
That's an interesting one. One major development I've seen, I'm not sure about the success rate of that, but I was reading an article and a lot of fintech companies have switched from automated third party ingestion. You get data from a lot of third party vendors. It
Hmm.
could be, about competitors, it could be about market in general. And this particular data previously in a regulated industry was a bit of concern because you don't know where the data is coming from, you don't
Hmm.
know if that data is safe. But one thing that the AI wave has tipped off is for people to get a good, strong foundation. And a strong foundation means having all of your data in one place. It does not mean including CSVs all the time, but including strong internal data sources. So now
Hmm.
I see financial industries moving from, "Hey, what are we doing?" to more of a, "Hey, what is the market doing?" So I see that switch. Get our data, get third party data, look at the broader picture and not just what are we doing in the market, but where is the market spanning to?
I think it's a really good, yeah, because it's almost like you can have market monitors and ways. And then I think what's happening, I think we've talked about it, and we've even been dealing with some clients is like, hey, they have, their SharePoint, their Salesforce, all their documents, their models. Then they have their different data feeds, right, and bringing that together. And then there's new types of data that can be collected that or processed that we never could do before, and
Right.
bringing that all together. But it also does go back to some of your points even earlier, though. You do need to have like that taxonomy of the business, all those things in place, so that it will be. This client we're working with, they were like, "What is LLM ready?" And we had to kind of explain that to them, like with their documents and things like that. And I think you're right. People are tapping into, I mean, what is it? The figure is 80% of all internal data is unstructured, and we've never been able to unlock that. So it's a fantastic unlock, I see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And now all of that data, like the companies are moving to the idea for one source of truth, one database that manages all of it, one place where all the data lives,
Hmm.
because that helps the AI system learn from that one particular source. Right,
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
and I have seen this in practice. I was at a conference and I was talking to someone. I think they were from JP Morgan or something. But then when I asked them, "Hey, so your chatbot," and we were just talking about an agent in the form of chatbot, and they had multiple databases. So their agent actually has to switch between databases when they ask a certain type of questions. And they
Hmm.
actually have the functionality where that agent is able to talk to both databases, create that logic, make sure that joins it together, and then answers the question. And you can actually see that when the agent goes like, "I don't have the information I need some time to think on it," and it connects with the other one, and then it gives the actual information.
No, no, that
Yeah.
is a
Amazing.
great. I love it.
And and as I've been hanging out with Mary Beth for a few years now, so once you have your unstructured data structured, then you're going to find new revenue streams potentially once you have your stuff organized. I know she looks so proud.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. It's definitely it's gotten interesting with all of this where we've had some people say to us, well, data is not our core business. And then we said, well, okay, if you do this, there may be ways, it may not be now, but you may be able to monetize it in different ways. And I talk about monetization as internal and charging your business, right? And using better analytics and customer support and all these things. But there could be, just like how the credit card data is anonymized and used. You could actually maybe anonymize some sort of proprietary data or information that could then be either a product or sold or insights from that. And it's kind of, people are still trying to get their head wrapped around it, but there is an opportunity there.
100%.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I like to take the cost and like turn it into an opportunity, and we're gonna make some money with it too. Why not
Yeah,
have another
exactly.
revenue stream?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are just gonna see if Christine or Richard have had any questions come in. Yeah. So just ask
So
you
Nemo,
then.
she's asking, what have been some of your favorite use cases for insurance that you've worked on so far?
Oh, so many, if I had to list. Um, but something that everyone in insurtech space does is something called as a client persona per se. And that is such an interesting use case, right? Knowing who your users are, what they do, and how can you service them better. And I think when you put all the business units and all the data that every business unit generates together, you get an entirely vast story, right? Let's say if I'm a part of a sales team, I have my data narrowed down to just interactions. But what about the customer service? They can come back and give so much more perspective. So, like putting all the data that is generated by these business unit together and then showing them this, that hey, this is your client, this is
Yeah.
your user, and that is such an eye opener project.
Yeah, and that's so
Yes.
powerful because, again, back to basics. If you're not solving the customer's problems, what are we doing here, right? So that is very core to their business. So, yeah.
So I guess a question for you, Nemo, and just like thinking like, core what we're talking about is, and this is a question that Richard kind of sent through here is, uh, when you think about insurance, right? You sell policies, right? Claims come in, you have to pay those claims. So you have to manage a portfolio, a bond portfolio, to manage that risk. Curious to see what insurance companies are doing in that area to manage that risk. With these type of solutions. And then then I have a part B to the question. I'm going to hold off on that. But that was one of the things, like, how are they doing that, of like their investments in using AI and tools like this for that?
Yeah. So I have a two-part answer for that. There definitely is some AI automation in this space, but the AI automation is like 60 to 70%. For example, let's say death claims. And we have a joke in insurance that no death claim are the same. Every death claim is different. So there's only 50, 60% of the process that you can automate, right? Let's
Okay.
say you have a workflow. The 60% of it is the same. That's what you outsource to AI or any tool per se. And then the 40% of it has to be a human who comes up and does that. Again, a good example for a human in loop, and there are examples of some things will always require a human brain. It won't be outsourced to AI end to end. There will always be a gap, a space where only a human can make those decisions,
Agree.
and not an
Yeah.
AI or any automated system for that matter.
Yeah. And then, is there certain areas like in the business that they're choosing to invest more so than others with these technologies? Whether it's claims, whether it's the wealth management part now, underwriting, customer service, like, where do they tend to want to invest and put their bets, the executives?
I mean, honestly, there's no one such area because every area has potential. right? And now with the AI race, you can choose one or the other, because if you do claims and not sales enablement, hey, there was a good opportunity here as well. So I see more of an investment done on maybe a broader level, but narrower, not just one and deep, just every team, every business unit. And one thing I see that's happening is one business unit comes up with, hey, this is my pain point. This is something that is taking 30% of me doing manual work. And that's what
Mhm.
we start targeting. Hey, so how about we start doing this with AI? Right? So you save yourself some time, you can be more productive. So all the manual repeated work, we see that being outsourced to AI for every business unit, whether it's claims, it's underwriting, it's enablement, any space. If there's manual repetitive work, that's being automated first with AI.
And then are those also the ones that they're more likely to be able to measure the return on investment? It would sound like that's the ones, that's what I'm thinking as I hear this. It's easier to quantify.
Pretty much, because now you have a number. 30% of my work was manual. I was doing this for 5 hours a day. Now, with this AI tool, it gives me back X amount of time. So it's quantifiable, like you said.
Got it.
So
Another question we have here is, a lot of these processes, many insurance companies or other businesses have outsourced some of these processes onshore, offshore. But now that you're incorporating AI, do those business processes come back into the organization and not offshored versus onshored?
That's actually an interesting question, because with tech, all the tech companies, I see more of an outsourcing thing happening. But for insurance, for financial services, for fintech, also for pharmaceuticals, I
Yeah.
see a lot of folks moving to in-house capabilities.
Yes.
Right. So everything that was outsourced is now planned on, hey, how can we bring it home? And how can we build a secure system in-house?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think also what's interesting and is that when this kind of exploded, a few years ago, and I was dealing with a lot of asset managers and hedge funds. Then they're very secretive and they're very protective of their proprietary data. They don't even want their questions going into these models. So what's been interesting is now seeing people wanting to even bring some things on-prem, which I never thought that was going to be the shift back, but the pendulum is going back
yeah.
for these industries. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I see a lot of companies moving to migration. Like, one of the things that I've been talking a lot about with my friends or someone that I met at conferences or meetups is, hey, so what's happening in your world? And the one thing that I hear is migration. We're moving to a better system so that we can now do things in house. And nine out of 10 times that is for an AI initiative.
Makes sense. Makes a
Just
lot of sense.
touching
Yeah.
back on if they're saving money, eliminating the manual processes, then where are they going to 10x, or where are they going to go next? Like, what's the deeper work that their employees will look at now that they're not focused on the manual processes?
They will invest in the infrastructure, they will own those systems. And especially with the data field, right? At first, it was more about, hey, this is the insight that I have. This is where, we're investing, or maybe this is what we should do. But now, when you outsource a lot of building time to AI, now as an analyst or someone in data space, I can give you an end-to-end story. This happened in the market, we did this at this point, this is what was cost, this is the correlation.
Mhm.
Now with automation and AI, you can give a more insightful, a more end-to-end story, and not just a, hey, this is what happened in that time frame. Because I'd be spending a lot of my time just building something and finding out what happened in that instance. But now you have unlocked the potential to have an end-to-end picture.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
fantastic. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to move on to what we kind of call our lightning round. And this is where we usually tend to ask guests about resources, tips, something to leave the audience with that they can take away with them. And first is, what recommendations do you have of like podcasts or newsletters that you're, using to stay current on AI, data technology, and the trends out there?
Oh, I have so many podcasts. I think my favorite is my favorite is No Prior. It's so I listen to it on I think Spotify or Apple, but it's useful for market or product setup and right. And they give context about, hey, how are AI engineers or research working with the business teams? What are the implications? And they actually interview these technical folks and ask them, how are you working with your business units? How are you solving a problem with the business? That has been insightful. The second I'd say is the AI space podcast by Sanjay. There's always the latent space. I like that one as well. And you which one? What was the next question? Sorry
Oh
for
wait, I'll go to the next question. We didn't get that was the first one, and I guess also I think of it this way is, is there certain like people who are thought leaders in the space that you follow, right? So who do you tend to like to follow, and you feel that's good for people to kind of plug into?
Yes. So I follow these folks on Substack. There's Interconnects by Nathan Lambert. Uh, Very technical. It's not much of a hype, but especially if you're kind of interested in open models, how do you train them? How do you
Mm-hmm.
evaluate them? How do you wipe code? That's a good one. There's Import AI by Jack Clark, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like, it's a very awareness based Substack. Like, what is the most recent cutting edge research by AI done right now, and explained in a very simple, non technical words that, and I love that.
Okay.
And the next one is One Useful Thing by
I read
Ethan.
that too. That's a good one. Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
amazing. I've learned so much from that. And in fact, that's how I got into my AI journey of building things.
Yeah. No, I do like the Substack newsletters because they do make a lot of it from the technical down to, not gobbledygook English, us lay people can understand, right? They make it and they break it down so people are educated. So also, whether it's work or personal, I'm going to go on the next question. What AI tools do you like to use? Like, what have you found most useful? There's so many tools out there, but there's might be.
Yeah, there's so much. I find myself switching to different tools for different tasks. I go to Codex if I have to code. I like Claude if I have to brainstorm and come up with a presentation. Uh, I go to GPT if it's more contextual.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my own personal AI chatbot on my phone. It's an agent.
I love it.
I called it QB. I'm into animes, and there's like the whole thing. So I named it QB. And for
Nice.
any other thing, more or less like going and making my personal calendar up to date, I just go to my own AI tool for that.
Yeah.
Nice. Very
No,
cool.
that is, I love it. It's fantastic. The one thing though, too, which you talked about is you go back and forth to the different tools, and the different tools can develop and have different things that we like better than others. And I, for the longest time, was using, I still like it, but now because of an upgrade they did in ChatGPT, I was using Nano Banana a lot. But now they did the Image Creator 2.0 on ChatGPT, and I've gone back to it. The
Yeah.
images that it creates for my newsletter and everything else are just um, they're consulting quality, like thought leadership. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Sandy knows I hate Canva, so I don't have to use Canva.
Yeah.
So it's a godsend. So I've flipped back myself. And I guess one of the things would be, what recommendation do you have to someone who's trying to get this AI transformation and whatnot going, especially in a regulated legacy industry like insurance? Like, what piece of advice can you leave them with?
I'd say start small, start with the basics. right? Just spend time with yourself or maybe your teammates and ask them maybe. And one of the questions that has worked well in the past for me is, can we talk about you? What's happening with you? What's slowing you down? And if I had a magic wand, what can I change things to make your day much more efficient and productive? And like people, this question opens floodgates. Like people talk and they give you, hey, this thing I've been doing takes me 3 hours every day, and it should take me like 3 minutes or 30 minutes. And that's how you get your list of potential projects, potential problems that can be converted into practical solutions. So start there. That is your entry point into AI.
It starts
Yep.
with problems.
Starts
Sandy,
with
that makes us
people.
so happy. People
Starts
and
with talking
People
to
problems.
and
Even
people.
problems.
problems people have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
I this has been fantastic. Nemo, I'm so glad we had you on. Sandy, I know you're excited too.
Yes,
Uh,
this is great.
and we do have to thank a friend of ours, Anna Anderson. Nemo is going to be a judge for the Enterprise AI Awards for AI Loves Data, which will be in Miami next February. I'm going to be a judge as well. We're very excited about that. We'll drop a link about it also with all the tips that Nemo gave. We will share those. And then also just to talk about is we are starting our next executive AI transformation program on August 3rd. It's a 6-week program. It is designed to not be too technical or theoretical, to really give executives the confidence to actually take their AI strategy, align it to the business, and get those use cases, and get into a roadmap so that they can then have a path. It also has some change management in it, data foundations, technology. We have instructors who are all experts in their area. It's a 6-week course. We'll drop that link. And then the other thing is, lastly, want to also mention that our next office hours, which will happen on July 16th, with Cindy Montaguine, who is the founder of Edgy Strategies. She is an expert in people and transformation. She has done business turnarounds from 80 million to $900 million businesses and helped them navigate AI adoption, the strategic transformation, and the organizational changes. And just like us, Cindy believes that it's not just the technology, it's the people, like we've been talking about with Nemo. We got to bring it all together. And we're very much looking forward to having her on as well. So, with that, Nemo, thank you for joining us. It has been a pleasure.
Thank
And
you for having me. This has been
Yes,
great.
thank you. If you have any website or anything you want to shout out, by all
yes,
means.
yeah. Is there a website or a LinkedIn that you want us to share?
Yes, I can share my LinkedIn with you guys, and I'm pretty active on it. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, please feel free to do so.
Okay.
Awesome. This was
We
great.
will,
Thank you so much.
yeah. Thank you so much. It was great having you on. Great to be here with you and Sandy. And everyone, have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.